Story time. So back in 2021, between 2021 and 2023, the leader has started getting involved with different tinctures and different things. And she has started some research and looking into cannabis and marijuana. And I remember one day I came over to her house and she was in the bed and she had taken a gummy. As she was telling me, one of the gummies, and I inquired of what she was referring to, and she had pointed to some bottles that she had hidden, where it was gummies, that cannabis gummy. She says she was using it to help her to relax and to sleep because she often had a problem sleeping. So one day, a different separate day, she says to me, I come over to her house and she says to me, uh, you should she either said you should try it, or she asked me to try it. She either tells me or asks me, I forget which one it was, but I remember firmly saying to her, no, I don't want to, thank you though, because I had recalled how I felt the last time I took marijuana or something similar to it back in college, when my ex soror at the time I was in a sorority, and these two women had encouraged me to take K9, smoke some K9, and I almost lost my life. I will never forget that day. My heart was racing, my eyes were going like this and that, and people who have been in similar experiences of that sort, some people have lost their minds. So I was very clear that I didn't want to do it. I never wanted to feel that way ever again. And however, much like most things, anytime I I will speak for myself, even though it many people can attest to that who would be honest. Anytime I said no, or I didn't want to, or I wasn't interested, it was always some sort of kickback or something, or manipulation, or yelling, or something. Depending on the situation, it was always, if it was not her way and what she wanted, there was always something said. And so she just continued on and on, and she was like, help you sleep, and this will help you relax. And so I obliged. I gave in. I said, okay, sure. And I took it. And at the time, she had a guest over, who had come to spend time with her. And that night, I was staying at her house because she could never be in her house without an armor bearer, unless it was a different situation, which I won't talk about here. But she would always have to have an armor bearer. So that day, I decided to stay. And I remember it like it was something I did yesterday, even though I did it years ago. I remember I started to feel a little queasy. And then not long after, like the room began to change. And I felt I'm standing up by the side of her bed, and I feel my hands and my limbs disappearing. I feel myself about to sink into the floor, like my body's like disappearing. And it freaked me out. And to not cause a disturbance, I decided to, because the guest was there, I decided to go around, and I got in the leader's bed. She had a very huge bed. I got into her bed, and I said to myself, I'm just gonna lay down. And I go to lay down, and I feel myself sinking into the bed, sinking into the pillow. And I get up, and I'm just like, I forgot what happened, what was said, but I think the leader saw that my eyes started to look very hazy, very like low, and she asked the guests, to leave. She'll talk another time, and it just ended up being me and her in the her house by ourselves. And I remember coming up to her and saying, I need to take a shower, and I see the look and the concern on her face, but I'm trying not to make it seem like a big deal, but inside I was panicking. And I take a shower, and I promise you that all I could remember saying over and over again is, God, if you get me out of this situation, I'll never do this again. I remember getting out of the shower and going into the guest room and just trying to walk around, because any time that I stood still, I felt like I was sinking or disappearing. And it was a trigger for what happened to me back then. And I just remember even slouching over and putting my head on the end of the bed and saying, God, please, if you get me out of this, I'll never do it again. And so I share that story to share that recklessness in leadership is at an all-time high. Leader number one, encouraging any member to take drugs, because even after my experience, she actually encouraged another armor bearer to take it, and she had a very interesting and wild experience. And we would sit and we would laugh about, make jokes about it. But I have forgotten that situation. I have forgotten that situation until recently. Like recently, meaning after I published the book, I'm sitting down and God brings that back to my remembrance. And he says to me, it wasn't funny. It wasn't funny, because no leader should be encouraging the use of drugs to any of its members. A pastor, an apostle, a bishop, whoever, somebody who is in the realm of the church, who is not a licensed medical professional, who is not your doctor, should not be encouraging you to take any sort of drug. Because what if I did have a response like I did that last time? It wouldn't have been good. So if you're in a church where leadership is encouraging the use of drugs, encouraging you to do things that that you are against, or you've been firmly against, and they're encouraging it, I want to tell somebody that people need to understand that when you're in a role of leadership, you are in a role of influence. And how you handle that influence in the sight of God determines a lot. When many people stand before God on the day of judgment, God is not just going to look at the sins. God's also going to take a heavy look in observation and judge people's character and how they handled and conducted themselves with leadership roles, with people, with businesses, with churches, with whatever. And if you have a leader, you sit under a leader who encourages things that Jesus himself would not do, you need to find yourself another church. You need to find yourself another church, with the Holy Spirit. You need to wait on God to send you somewhere to a pastor after his own heart. And in the interim, in the hallway, in the meeting room, in the waiting room, I should say, you need to sit yourself down with God in the Holy Spirit and ask God to heal your wounds, heal your heart, heal your insecurities, heal the way that you think and how you conduct yourself. Because I promise you, there are many wolves in sheep's clothing, and I sat under one for over 10 years and experienced all sorts of psychological, emotional, mental abuse, sexual abuse, and all sorts of things, financial abuse. And I lost 10 years of my life, but to God be the glory. I'm healed, I'm whole, and I'm here to be a beacon of light and to share my testimony so that others don't have to suffer the way that I did. So my book, Intolerable, is out right now. You can get it on Amazon or my website, lindsaygracewrites.com. And if you are in need or you need help, please first contact your local authorities. And if it's something that is not a life or death situation, contact your local social services. If you need prayer, please message me, please reach out. And I pray that this movement continues, and that it grows, and that it helps deliver people out of the hands of reckless, wicked leaders. God bless.